Hey everybody, welcome to Cage My IQ. Everybody, once again, this is another edition of Cage My IQ for UFC 256. I'm your host, D-Bake. Once again, I got with me Miles. How's it going, Miles?
Hey, what's up?
And joining us for the first time, we got Sam. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, man, it's going great. I'm honored to be on your show, man. Thank you guys for having me.
If nobody knows, Sam just joined Buzz a little while ago. How about you tell everybody what your role is at Buzz?
I'm a writer. I write on MMA predominantly, but I'm trying to branch out into professional wrestling as well. I might do a little bit of hockey, but MMA is my main deal, guys. I love the sport of MMA.
I hear you there. But right before we get going to everything, I'm going to play this promo for you for our hopefully soon to be a partnership with Manscaped. Once again, that's Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. It's a great product that they have. They have the Lawnmower 3.0. Not only can you shave down there with no worries at all of any cuts or anything, but you can also use it for your face as well. I use it for my face instead, but from what I hear from everybody, it's a great product. And once again, that's Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Get right into the thick of things right now. We got the UFC coming up this Saturday with the UFC 256. And our first topic before we get into the meat and potatoes is the UFC's handling of COVID-19. How do you guys feel the UFC has handled it since everything has happened in March? I'll start with you, Miles.
All right. Well, I feel like they started off the right way and they put in place the protocols they need to put in place. And so they'd be able to operate without spreading COVID, obviously. But then there's like certain key figures in the organization who just don't do the thing. Like that's always the problem. Like if you look at what happened in Germany when the disease started to spread, Germany locked everything down. No one in, no one out. Nobody goes to work. Government's paying for your shit. That way you can just stay home. Most people had like their groceries delivered, stuff like that. And what happened is they pretty much got it down to almost non-existent. But then they're back getting spikes again because they just stopped doing the thing. They got too lax, and now the disease is out of control again. And they're like, well, fuck, now we got to lock down again. Like we got to do the whole thing. And it's basically the same thing here, where they put these really good protocols in place where other sports organizations were like, we don't even know how we can do the sport and not spread COVID, especially something like this where it's a contact sport. But they worked really hard to put together a proposal and say, this is what we're going to do. These are the steps we're taking to make sure that we protect our fighters, we protect our staff, and we do this responsibly. And that was awesome. And then you got like Dana White and Joe Rogan just completely ignoring the protocols. Like the things that say you can't have contact greetings, they're like fist bumping and handshaking, and Dana White's like hugging people. And it's like, dude, that's not the thing. that's the opposite of the thing. And of course, they never wear masks. They don't wear gloves or anything, even though, again, that's part of the protocol of what you're supposed to be doing. And so I did some research on this. I was wondering, like, well, how bad has it gotten, right? I found a link at MMAmania.com. I can post it in the private chat if anybody wants to see it. But it's a list of all the outbreaks that have happened so far to date, except for one. I think there was one that happened December 2nd. That's not on that list. But
Yeah.
if you add them up, it's a little over 50 cases. And those are just people who do like in front of the camera work. We're talking cornermen, coaches, fighters. So we don't really know how many people behind the camera have also tested positive. People like event coordinators, organizers, PR and marketing people, everybody else who's involved in that, who's also subject to, a person here and there just not following the protocols. And then they're put in jeopardy because of that. And the thing I think that a lot of people don't understand is that there's a lot of asymptomatic cases. So when Dana White's like hugging people and fist bumping, like you don't necessarily know if they're okay, because like my cousin, she works in New York. She's like, yeah, a lot of people are asymptomatic, and you tell them, oh, you had COVID. They're like, really? I had no idea, but they already have the antibodies and the disease has already taken its course. So during that time, they were just spreading it around and they had no idea what was happening. So really it's a thing that they need to tighten up on, because it's not fair to the fighters. The fighters, I mean, if you're in the UFC, like your health and your well-being is how you make money. So like they need to tighten up that line and stick to the protocols, because, a lot of these fighters who are below the top 15 in the division, a lot of them don't necessarily have sponsorships to fall back on, have that money coming in when they're not fighting. So if they get taken off a card, that's a huge financial blow. So, I mean, they have a good protocol. They just need to enforce it.
Yeah, right before I get to Sam's opinion, I got Gary here. He said, "What's up, boys? How's it going, Sam?"
What's up, Gary?
Mm-hmm.
I honest to goodness, I completely agree with Miles on this. The same thing that Dana White said in the beginning about the NBA and these other leagues, and just because they're not showing symptoms, doesn't mean they don't. And he would knock the NBA and the Major League Baseball. Well, now they're doing it. The word of the day, guys, is complacent. These guys have got comfortable, and hey, I'll forever be grateful for them bringing sports back with the Ferguson Gaethje fight. Forever be grateful for that. But the bottom line is, as humans, we get comfortable with a situation, and we get lazy. I couldn't agree more with what Miles is saying. Asymptomatic. That's exactly right. The same thing he knocked other leagues for, they are now doing. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, guys. I mean, I couldn't agree more with Miles on that. I mean, they've got fighters coming up with COVID every week now. I think they've had three lost main events in the last 3 weeks.
Three. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. In the last 3 weeks, yeah.
And it's bottom line, guys. I mean, just because you think you wear a mask or maybe you've got gloves on, you're in that gym and you're sparring with people you don't know. It's easy to spread. You have to take these precautions. So I agree totally with Miles on this. Complacency, guys. These guys have just gotten lazy. They need to step it back up, lock down these procedures that they enforced in the beginning, pull your pants up and make these guys do it. Stand up and do this thing right. Keep everybody safe. We want sports as America, and I want MMA. We all want MMA, but it's either do it right or don't do it. So.
Yeah, and what's crazy about it is they have to use all those protocols when they go to Fight Island. Fight Island, they're very strict with everything, how you got to quarantine before you go for, I believe it's 10 days. Then you get to the island, you quarantine for 2 straight days once you're there. Maybe it's 3. It's 2 or 3, just in case. They give them an extra couple of days. And then you can go do whatever. They usually say do whatever, because then by then, they test you every so often, and then I think that's what Dana White thinks it's okay. I think at that point, like, he does stuff good, but then he thinks, oh, we're going to test everybody once or twice or 3 times a day, so that'll kind of counteract not wearing masks or anything. But what he doesn't realize is all that does is somebody can get it, you can take them out and then replace them with somebody else. It's like a numbering system, per se, instead of thinking the person as a human. And I get why he does it, because he has to run a business. But at the same time, you can put things in place to make it more safe. Like everybody around the ring wear a mask. I can see the announcers and whatnot. I can see if they don't wear them, because you got to hear them, and it's kind of hard to hear them. So if they're like 6 feet apart and then they don't interact, like physically while they're calling the fights, that's perfectly fine. I understand that because they're all getting quarantined and they're all getting checked the same way. But they can't say one thing and then do it half-ass and then go back to normal and then criticize somebody else for doing the same thing as them. They got to do it 100% by the book, and then have a little bit of leeway, like I said with the announcers. But like, I love MMA just as much as you, and vice versa. But we want all the fighters to have the same opportunities, and we don't want them to be taken away because of the rules are being bent. So where they get COVID, it messes them up in the end. There's a guy on the card that hasn't fought in a year because 2 or 3 times his fights have gotten basically scrapped because of COVID with his opponent. And so he's had to wait. He's had fights get rescheduled 3-4 times, and now he's finally getting a chance this Saturday. And he just came in, so he doesn't have the luxury that the main event guy like Tony Ferguson or something has, where, like you said, he has sponsors that basically pay him to train and to fight because he's a main guy. Some of these guys don't have that, so they're paying out of pocket to train, and they're paying out of pocket to fly to, and then when the fight gets scrapped, he's basically screwed. So, like, I agree with both of you on that. But
these guys, they have families too. I mean, they go home to their families. Everybody. I'm just saying, everybody should want to be safe. You should want to take these precautions.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. Well, I mean, I do pretty much. Like I said, it's just complacent. But like you guys said, they have to enforce these rules that they came up with. Enforce them. Make this thing happen and do it right.
But to segue into one of the fight, we got TJ Dillashaw. His suspension is coming up in a few months. He was interviewed a couple days ago, and they asked him where he sees himself fighting when he comes back, and he said he thinks he deserves a title shot right away, and he thinks the guys ahead of him haven't been doing a great job. And do you think TJ Dillashaw should deserve an immediate title fight when he comes back?
Me first or you, Miles?
Either or. He's got to go. So
I've been waiting to dig into this one.
I'm sorry.
No, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Hey, I'd love to get a title shot too, but bottom line, TJ Dillashaw lost the fight with Henry. It was a fair loss. People can say what they want. Henry won the fight, and then you tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Now, you took your suspension like a man. You admitted it, which, you accepted fault. That's a good thing, but that still doesn't make it right. And where I'm from and how I grew up, rewarding bad with good doesn't work.
Yeah.
You broke the rules. Bottom line, this guy needs to get in there with a top 10 guy. Aljo should get his shot. Bottom line, that's number one. Aljamain Sterling should get his title shot. This guy's deserved it for a while now. He should fight Peter. I can't even pronounce Peter Yan.
Yeah.
But bottom line, Dillashaw should go in there against a Sandhagen or maybe a Frankie Edgar. See what you're all about without the Peds before you get in there and get that title shot. Maybe you're not ready like you think you are, because bottom line, no, he should not get a title shot. Everybody thinks they should get a title shot, but unless you're Khabib or you're a John Jones, you're not going to just come right in and get what you want. You're not that big of a brand yet. You're TJ Dillashaw. So that's my thoughts. TJ Dillashaw should not get a title shot as soon as he comes in.
Sure.
Right to you, Miles?
Yeah, so I agree with most of what you're saying. When it comes to we had this conversation on another topic on a separate episode where I was in. I forget what the exact thing. I remember. It was relationship between Dana White and Conor McGregor, and we talked a little bit about sportsmanship rules within UFC, how they are and aren't enforced and actually enacted. And when it comes to something like performance enhancing drugs, Like, that's not the same as like talking shit and maybe crossing a line and saying a thing you shouldn't say. Like, that's on a whole nother level. Like, across the sports world, we generally recognize that that's not a good thing to do. It's completely unfair to everybody else. And so, I mean, yeah, he was suspended. And I think he should have to kind of start from the bottom again. Well, not the bottom, but you're right. He should have to prove himself, because we don't know how many of those fights he was doping on, probably most of them, if not all of them. And so it'll be interesting to see how much of that was due to the drugs and how much of that is due to his own hard work and training. So he should have to kind of reprove himself. But then there's a cynical side of me that says, well, Dana White does a lot of things for money, like Dana White will book fights and he'll hype them up, even if they're not necessarily in the best interest of the fighters, like in the case of Conor McGregor and doing the boxing fight with
Mayweather.
Mayweather, and that ended up kind of tanking. And so I feel like if Dana White feels like there's money to be made in a Dillashaw versus Jan fight, he'll book it in a second. He'll be like, oh yeah, no. And people are like, oh, but he was dope. He's like, we suspended him for 2 years. Like, what else do you want us to do to him? Like, I think there's a part of this where there's definitely going to be some money involved. So it'll depend on, I think, how excited people get and how much of this they can push into funneling in more ticket money, more event money. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you take it as a moral issue, he shouldn't. But if you look at it as like a corporate money-making decision, there's a decent chance that they might just push it anyway and make that fight happen, regardless if he deserves it or not. But I mean, if he cheats, then and he's not really as good as he thinks he is, and he gets a shot with Peter Yan, and then Peter Yan just beats the shit out of him. That's kind of punishment all on its own,
Yeah, absolutely.
His ass handed to him by Peter Yan. That's not a fun thing to do. So,
no.
I don't know. We'll see how the chips fall on that one.
But do you think TJ Dillashaw is that big of a draw? I don't see TJ Dillashaw bringing in money like that. People don't clamor to watch a pay-per-view and say, "Oh, it's the Dillashaw fight." And
I don't know. So I guess it would depend on the marketing, right? Like if they played it up as like, oh, he's coming back after a 2-year. Oh, what's he been doing? He's been training real hard. He's got new skills. They could play it up. And that's the power of marketing is someone super boring and not able to draw a crowd with the right marketing. You can fill a stadium. So it'll depend on, again, it's a money decision. If Dana White's like, hey, if we play this right, this will make a lot of money in this fight and pay-per-views, and used to be ticket sales, but nobody's going to fucking fights live anymore. But if there's a mint to be made on this and all you got to spend is like maybe a third of that money that you're going to make on marketing, I mean, 2/3 of what you spent, or actually, I guess that would be like 60% of what you spent just turns into profit. They'll do it in a second, even if he's not that exciting of a fighter, if he doesn't deserve it. So, I mean, we'll see. Because I mean, I've seen boring fighters get fights before, where I'm like, really? Like that guy? Yeah. That guy deserves a fight? So it wouldn't be unheard of.
I'm not surprised if you were to get it, because if you think about it, Cody Garbrandt was moving down a division, and then he was going to exact title shot moving down right away before he had to step away from the fight. And then Jose Aldo was on a two fight losing streak. I think he lost 3 or 4, and then they gave him a title shot right away for the vacant title against Peter Yan. So it's all about the name brand. And then when you think of TJ Dillashaw, you think of Ultimate Fighter. He was on there. He did well, came out, and they see him when they think of UFC. They think of the show. If you ever watched the show, you would know him. And then in that division, there's not that many marketable guys right now, per se. So you could put it in there, and then the thought process is you can make money right away just by putting him in there. What I think is going to actually happen, though, is it's TJ Dillashaw using the marketing to try and get himself into that position, because he's going out there saying, I was suspended 2 years, but now I'm ready. These guys aren't looking great. It's just a guy passing along the title here and there. You had a guy that lost, get a title shot, and then a guy that basically fought the guy that lost, win it, and he hasn't done anything since. So he's trying to use the platform to get it. But what I think will happen is he'll get a fight like you said, maybe Sandhagen, to where if he were to win that and to look good doing so, because we don't know how he's going to look while not using the extra stuff to get the extra advantage, then he'll gain the title fight. And that's how he'll get it. I think it's him using it to get a stepping stone fight rather than actually getting it, because he might think he will, and he could actually get it, but in his mind, he's probably like, I probably have to fight one more time before I get there. But he's definitely in the top 5. He's definitely in there because of what he's done. But it's just like he needs to have that fight, since he hasn't fought in 2-3 years, just to prove that he deserves it.
Absolutely. And I hate the break format with this, but I got to tell you, I don't see Peter Yan losing that belt for a while. That guy is an absolute killer. I'm not sure Dillashaw would fare well in that fight anyway.
Yeah, so. I'd rather see Sterling get a shot, because I think he would have a shot at taking it from Yan. But I'm in the same boat. I think Yan has the chance to hold it for a while with the skills that he holds. I just thought that he looked a little sluggish against Aldo, which made me doubt him a little bit. But then once he got going after that first round, he looked like a destroyer, or like he took Aldo out of his element, like right afterwards.
Pinpoint accuracy as well. I mean, he's good.
Yep. But right before we get to the reactions from UFC Fight Night, I just want to show everybody the promo for our social media. We're now with the Buzz now. Starting off with a bang. First week we did great. And here's the promo video on where you can find us.
Get the Lambo car, house in the hills with the stars. Told you I'd raise the bar, told you that I'd go far. Oh, baby, it's crystal clear. I'm not a souvenir. I'm not an accessory, I'm a necessity. So come and check me out now. I'm a necessity, so come and check me out now.
Once again, that is the Buzz. We're on all the social medias. We're on IG, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and then we're on YouTube. So if you want to go find everything, just go to one of those on the video link, and then go support the movement that we're starting. But segueing that right into the Fight Night results, what was your reactions from the fight card from Saturday? I'll start with you, Miles. We got the first fight on the main card, which was Jordan Levitt defeated Matt Willman by KO.
Well, my reactions are pretty short, just because. Damn. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to try hopping out. I'll be right back.
You want me to go ahead and go, bro?
Yeah, I'll start off with you then. The first fight was Jordan Levitt defeating Matt Willman by KO. What was your thoughts of that fight?
Levitt looked phenomenal. I mean, I thought it was going to be a pretty good fight to begin with, but I think Levitt is really going to move up. I mean, he's got some power.
Yeah.
He looked good. He really did. I think the guy that he was in there with just might not have been the same caliber of a fighter. It just looked like they were on two different levels. And I can't come in here and say I know a whole lot about either, because I don't. They're up and comers, but I will say that Levitt appeared to be right here as to where, opponent was a little bit off.
And then what about you, Miles?
Yeah, sorry about that. I have some internet issues, I guess. I had to jump out real quick. I didn't have a whole lot of reactions because I didn't see it. I've been drinking the last 2 days and having get-togethers. So while that was happening, I was throwing them back. But yeah, so, I mean, I don't have a lot of input there. This is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I caught half of the card, but I definitely caught this, because it's been popping up on social media and everything. He just had him, threw him down, and then Willman was out right away. He must have slammed him so hard that he knocked him out that way. He slammed him, he got up, and then the ref was like, "Okay, we're done. He's not even moving." I was just like, "Damn!" I didn't think that could happen from just getting slammed like that. But it looked good. Jordan Levitt looked good, and then I'm interested to see where he goes next in the crowded lightweight division, because I'm telling you, you got these guys in that division. It goes 15 fighters deep. Legit. Like you can book anybody against anybody, and it's going to be a good fight. But moving on to the next reaction, it was in the light heavyweight division. It was Roman, I think, Dolidis defeating John Allen by split decision, 28-29, 30-27, and then 29-28. What did you think about that, Sam?
I didn't really have a big reaction on that one. As a matter of fact, it might have been a fast forward for me. I DVR'd the show on that one. I watched a little bit, but I can't really comment too much on either one. It was just kind of a lackluster event for me. Unanimous decision. I think it might have been a tad much. Yep. But I don't know. I wouldn't like overwhelmed with that fight. Just put it like that.
Yeah, I felt that way with the first few fights on this main event. What about you, Miles?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I'm not even gonna lie.
No, it's all good. Now the next one, which I definitely loved, was in the lightweight division. We had Gabriel Benitez defeating Justin James by TKO, knee to the body and elbows. What did you think of this, Sam?
Didn't Justin James claim to catch an illegal knee? And it was illegal. I mean, it was. I don't think it was blatant, but I'm gonna say it took a little bit of sap out of him. It was a good fight up to that, but I thought I was picking James on that fight. If I'm honest with you, he's really looking good. So, but he lost. I mean, what they go with, what they go with, and I don't know. The illegal knee took a lot out of him. It was directly to the head. It hurt. That would put a normal guy like me and you out. So,
right before I give my opinion, we got Archie chiming in. That was a great TKO. He essentially powerbombed him. The sound of his head hitting the mat was unreal. Oh, definitely. I saw it. I'm like, whoa! Like he's out. But for this one, he was done after he got hit. They called it. I was high on Justin James, just like you. Like I was seeing him high on the prelim cards, the past few cards that he was on, and then to see him get a shot on the main card, I was waiting for him to do good, and then the fight was going very well up to that point, and then he just got caught in a bad spot, and then he got laid out, and then it just happens to guys at times, and then he just didn't. He didn't block his face at that moment. Like usually you try and keep your hands up, and he didn't do that. And then he got caught slipping, and then he went to sleep, of course.
Yep. Like I said, it's unfortunate because I see a guy like James his star is only getting brighter. I think the loss is a minor setback. I think he'll be, he'll be up and running before you know it. It's just a learning curve. He's still young.
And then we got the co-main event with the rising star, in my opinion. We had a catchweight bout between Jamal Hill against Ovince St. Preux, and Hill beat St. Preux by TKO. What did you think about that?
He deserved it. I'm sorry. I grew up wrestling. If you can't make weight you're in the big leagues now. I mean, making weight's important. He deserved it. I'm not high on him in St. Preux anyway. A lot of people, I think he's going to remain as a mid-card guy. I don't see him moving up. He's probably going to be a light heavyweight stepping stone, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And he'll look good. He'll look real good. He came in that fight hungry, as to where I think Ovince St. Preux might have been hungry before the fight because he missed weight. So.
Oh, yeah. And then you had a couple of other fighters hyping up Hill afterwards, saying that he's going to be one of the next stars. And then he came out, of course, and he proved it. He looked great. He looked smooth. He knows how to punch. and I'm excited to see where he goes next in that division. I'm interested to see who they try and put the book in front of him. Like, you got all these future guys coming in right now. You got Hill, you got Chimov, and like, it's crazy. They're trying to groom the next wave of guys to replace this wave. And like, they probably didn't think it was going to happen this fast, but you're always going to try and have guys in waiting so that when some guy retires, you can replace him. Like, Cormier's retiring.
It's a new generation.
Yeah. I can only assume John Jones will retire soon because there's not much for him left to do. And then all of his off the octagon issues that he has. And then there's Habib just retired, which was a big blow to the UFC. Like, that's right there. You lose two guys from the same camp.
You got to have star power.
Yeah, that were big draws. And this is what they're trying to do. Like, Chimif reminds you of Habib, and then he'll, like, I don't know why, but he kind of reminds me of like a John Jones-esque type guy. And I think John Jones was one of the guys that was hyping him up after the fight.
Absolutely.
Twice he was like, "This, he's the real deal. Like he's gonna be the future," and I'm ready for that. But moving on from that to the main event, this is the shocker to me because I don't know about you, but I saw it going the other way. But we had in the middleweight division, we had Marvin Vettori defeated Jack Hermanson by decision. All the judges scored it 49-46, except for one that did it 49-45, probably because of the first round. What did you think of this fight?
First off, these judges are going to lose. They're going to get somebody hurt. Or not hurt. They're going to hurt their career. I agree with Dana White on that. I mean, I don't know what fights they're watching, but as far as Marvin Vettori, man. This guy can't get a fight. People don't want to fight this guy. Legit do not want to fight him. And there's a reason for it. He's good. He's got a good wrestling game. He's a heavy striker. And I can't say that I knew he was going to come in and beat Jack Hermanson. But anytime you got a guy stepping in on short notice, hey, it's up in the air, bro. They haven't been training for, he hadn't been training for Marvin Vettori. And let's not forget, Jack Hermanson's he's not really a vet. He's still somewhat, green when it comes to being in these high ranks here. He hadn't been up there. So I'm proud and happy for Vettori. I hope he keeps calling people out. And I see this guy going, Marvin Vettori's good. And I think we might even see, I don't think he would be the first Italian champion because I think, didn't Gegard win a middleweight belt in the UFC or no?
I think he might have. I would have to look at that. But his boxing was just on point. Like that shot that he gave Hermanson in the first round that knocked him down. I completely thought that they were going to end it after that one point, and then they let him keep going, and then which I think was a mistake because he looked wobbly the rest of the way, minus maybe the third round, which. He looked pretty good because I think Vettori took that round off on purpose, but he was just like pinpoint accuracy. He was just like pop, 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 and and when he hit him, you felt it. Like I felt him getting hurt just by how he connected with those punches. It wasn't just like, oh, I just barely hit him. Like he really got him good, and he knocked him down. I haven't seen Hermanson get that way in a while because I believe the last fight he had, wasn't it Gastelum was the last fight that he had, and then he knocked Gastelum out in the first round because
he rocked him.
Which I think was like you were like, oh my god, that guy's going to be good.
That's a statement. That's a statement right there.
It was a statement, but at the same time, it was Gastelum's third straight loss there at that point, so he was on the way down already. Even though, like, when you think of Gastelum, you think of that fight against Adesanya where he actually looked good. He was the only guy to really test him. But
he didn't look bad against Till. I think Till just fought a smarter fight. But a guy like Gastelum, you can't ever count him out either, man, with his wrestling and his striking. I didn't see him getting knocked out by Hermanson, no. So
No, but when you fight a guy like Vittori, you gotta know this guy's gonna box me, so I gotta protect myself, which he didn't do. I didn't see him really protect himself at all, and then he got hit early, and then I think he just threw his game plan out the window after that point and just tried to survive. Which,
I mean, it was a fun fight to watch, but it just wasn't smart on Hermansson's part.
No, Vittori picked and choose the shots. He had it early. The one guy gave him 10. The judge gave him 10-8 right away, so he was already working from behind. And then Vittori took a round off and then went teeing again on Hermansson. And then I'm ready to see him get a good fight now because Hermansson I think he was ranked number 5. I think he was ranked number 5.
He was supposed to fight Till next, and Till got COVID.
And then I think Till was 4 or 6. So I want to see Vittori creep into that top 5 now, and then maybe get a shot at Till now that he beat Hermansson. Yeah,
but I will say, I don't think that fight hurts Hermansson though. No. To take the fight on short notice, that was a ballsy move. It's not like he's fighting chump change either. Vittori's a killer. So.
Yeah, I think it might hurt him a little bit just with how bad he lost, but it won't hurt him that he still took the fight and fought. Kind of like in the opposite direction, Paul Felder took a fight on 5 days' notice. I don't think that's going to hurt him. It kind of helped him a little bit, but then even though he got beat kind of badly, I think in the way that he hadn't trained at all, it made him look a little bit better. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on from fight night to the reason why we're doing this, UFC 255 breakdown and predictions. We're going to break down the main card. The first one we have here is the heavyweight bout between Cyril Gane against Junior Dos Santos. Now, I'll start with you, Miles.
All right. My mic on?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sure. Make sure. Because I have the button here that I got to push to make sure. So I just want to...
Yeah.
Before I start talking and I don't look like an All right, so I actually remember Junior Dos Santos from way back when I was in college, and I was really following the UFC. He's one of the older guys. He's been in the league for a while. He's getting old. He's like 36, which for the heavyweight division, you can still hang in there and you can still do stuff. Just because most heavyweight contenders aren't, spry dudes. They're not running around the ring and doing crazy shit. They're like, kind of like Paige Jackson, just kind of lumbers around and he throws these heavy strikes and almost never goes to the ground, really. Like it's a heavyweight. It's a heavyweight bout. So I think he's had his prime moment. Like it was really the 3 Dos Santos Velasquez fights, one after the other, that was his prime. And so now it's like, well, he's kind of on his way out. He's had his 20 minutes of fame and he's had so much wear and tear on his body. He's not like a young 36. He's like a war-torn 36. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Kind of his background a little bit from what I could find. He's a boxer and he's got that old school Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, which in this fight, I don't know how much that's going to come into play because it's an old school black belt. Like we were talking about this just on the last episode. We were talking about Shogun. Shogun, he was fighting on the last card. And, I mentioned he was one of the first generation of dudes like Bas Rutten who got their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was kind of a new thing. You were having the first generation of guys who got their black belt in like 3 years, 5 years. And you compare that black belt to what people got to go through nowadays to get a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. It's not even in the same arena. Like it's so much more work. Most guys average like 7 to 10 years, not 3 to 5.
Yeah, so, they hand them out now pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but I don't think his grappling is going to be as much of a thing in this fight because he has shown time and time again, hey, Tyler, he wants to stand and trade. He wants to stand there and fucking box it out. He's not into the whole I'm going to get him on the ground because he is a heavyweight. That costs a lot of energy for bigger dudes. So he's coming off of a 3-fight losing streak, and they're all losses by KO. So that just goes to show, I think it's a combination of he's getting old, there's a lot of wear and tear on his body, and the new generation of guys coming up, they're fresh. They don't have 10 years of battle scars weighing them down. And when I watch him fight, I notice he has good footwork, he has good movement, but he has a sense of timing that gets him in trouble because he'll walk into punches. He'll be like, oh, there's an opportunity, and he'll lunge for it, and then he he eats a big right or eats a hook or something like that. So that's going to be an issue for him. He's also the kind of fighter that builds up steam as the fight progresses. He's not a round one fighter. He doesn't go in, hot and heavy in the first round. He really catches his stride like second, third round sort of deal. But the important thing there is that he actually learns from his opponent. So while he's gaining steam, he's looking for the things that they do right, the things that they do wrong, looking for openings. That's experience. He's an older fighter. He's been there longer. He's picked up some tricks. Now, what's interesting is both of these fighters have almost the same sort of approach to their striking. They're in and out fighters. They'll kind of hang out on the outside and they'll come in, throw some strikes, and then pop back out. When somebody comes and they initiate an attack, they mostly tend to like back up and then move away. Like especially Dos Santos, he'll back up to the cage and then kind of use the cage to find a back door out and circle around so that they're back into the fighting into striking range. Meanwhile, he takes the center of the octagon. It's a decent control tactic for stand-up striking, but they both are trying to do it at the same time. So one of them's going to win, one of them's going to lose. They can't both be doing the same tactic and win Absolutely. At it, right? So the other thing I noticed, overall, his striking and kicking, it's less technically proficient than what you would expect to see from like a boxer. Usually when you see boxers into the ring, they're very technically sound, and you see them like they're real tight on their guard, real out and in. They have a lot of power because they use their lower body to generate that power, not necessarily these like wide, heavy swings. If you go wide on a hook, yeah, you can generate a lot of momentum, but in boxing, that's the kiss of death because you create this giant opening in your guard while you're swinging. So even if it connects, you still take like 3 punches on the way in. So he's definitely unorthodox in terms of what you would expect to see given his background. But he does make up for it because when he connects hard. He's got a decent amount of power. Even though he's small for a heavyweight, he holds his own. Now he's got good top side grappling game. He's very dominant, very heavy pressure when he's on top, good ground and pound. Now, when you look at the challenger, Mr. Gane, I think is how you say that. He's French, so I don't know how to say French names.
The first or the last correct. So
I'm gonna go with Gane. Just that's my best guess. If he has trouble or if he has issue with it, he can call me and bitch me out in French. I don't understand a word of it. But he's definitely a very experienced Muay Thai kickboxer. Like the dude has an undefeated Muay Thai career, and so far his UFC career, same thing. So he's a very good striker. He's actually 6 years younger than Dos Santos as well, and he has the reach advantage and the leg reach advantage. So he has all the advantages going into this. He's got the career, he's got the experience, he's got the age, he's even got my body is more equipped to deal with this fight than you. Like, he's got all the things. And what's interesting is for a heavyweight, he's got really good movement. Like he moves like a middleweight. The dude is just all over the place. He's bouncing in and out. He's circling. It's almost reminiscent of watching Adesanya fight. But he's bigger and heavier, which is impressive. Yeah. But what's interesting is he also tends to favor a lower guard. He tends to not be up top. He's kind of down near the rib cage, sometimes even not down near the hip level with his guard. Now, this could be problematic because Dos Santos, he lands about 60% of his significant strikes to the head. So if he tries to favor that guard and he's not fast enough, he doesn't have good head movement, which a lot of the time he uses his mobility rather than his physical ability to duck and weave. So that could catch him in trouble if Dos Santos lands those big, heavy power hits, catches him in the face. You can only take so many of those. So he'll have to be wary about that and really watch what his guards do in that whole fight. And he's got the same sort of heavy pressure topside grappling game. He's got decent ground and pound as well. His wrestling looks pretty good. His submission game is good, but the in-between isn't great, right? Like the wrestling and the takedowns, he's got decent wrestling. He's like, oh, I got you against the cage. And then when it's like, all right, I got to take him to the ground now, he just sort of like,
what do I do?
Yeah, he just falls. Like I've seen him like literally just go limp, and he's like dragging them down. I'm like that's not a takedown, bro. But once he gets him there, he's like, okay, now I can do my submission thing. So he really needs to work on that kind of in between because that's something that Dos Santos is good at. He's got that experience to go, okay, now we're wrestling. I can now do takedowns. It's not always clean, but he makes it happen, right? Now, it seems like Gane is a good striker, but pound for pound, it's really hard to say if he can produce more power than Dos Santos. I don't know. It's because I see him landing a bunch of shots that I would expect to see more damage out of him, because you can tell he's really put his back into it. And the dude he's hitting is just like, oh, okay, like that sucked, but I'm good. I can power it out. So I think maybe just depending in this fight, Dos Santos has more striking power, but Gane has the youth. He has the mobility. He has the ability to get out of the way of those big power punches, so they account for less. Now, in terms of what I think at the end of the day, final decision is most likely this is going to end in a knockout, because these are two fighters that love to stand and trade. So that's usually how this goes. When people want to punch each other in the face, someone loses that game. Now it could go either way, but Gane is in his prime. And like I said, Dos Santos, he's on his way out. He's got a lot of wear and tear. He's the older fighter. So, if this becomes a test of endurance, I think Gane is going to be the one who gets the knockout win, and Dos Santos just won't be able to stand and trade like he used to. If there's a submission, I think Gane will have it 100%. He's got more submission career victories than Dos Santos does. And he's also a lot faster on the ground, which accounts for a lot. If you both have dominant top game, another way to look at that is your bottom game, or working from your back, is not as strong. So if Gane gets on top and Dos Santos is trying to problem solve from his back, first of all, you got Gane moving around like a fucking middleweight. You're not going to be able to keep up and problem solve with that guy. So, yeah, I think Gane has a chance at submission as well if he wants it. I don't think he'll go for it, but if he wants it, it's there. And if this goes to decision, it could go either way, but it'll just depend on whether or not, I guess, Gane is able to maintain mobility, stay on his feet, go in and out. If he's able to control the fight, essentially, it'll go to him. If not, Dos Santos might land enough big power shots to really kind of shock him and rock his world and make it, the judges go, okay, well, in terms of like significant strikes, Dos Santos got the decision. So, I mean, it could go either way, but I don't think it's going to make it to decision, to be honest with you. I think this is going to be a Gane knockout, win by knockout.
Absolutely. That's a tough act to follow, Miles. You really made my job extremely hard. I wish I would have went first. But,
you can have the next one.
The one thing that you commented on was Dos Santos' timing. That used to be his calling card when he was in his prime. Dos Santos' timing used to be his calling card. But now, like you said, he's battle torn. He's been through a lot. The timing's not there. So I honestly have to say, Cyril Gane, I think this is, first off, a great fight to start the card off. You know it's going to be fireworks. You got two big killers in there wanting to tear each other's heads off. I don't think the big fight experience is going to get to Gane. I think that's how you say it. But, he's already fought some in the UFC, but his very first fight was for a heavyweight championship for an MMA organization in Canada called TKO. And he won that by knockout. He's an incredible kickboxer. I think likes to do, isn't he like 6-7-0 in Muay Thai kickboxing as well?
I believe his Muay Thai record was, I didn't write it down for this one, but yeah, it was something like that. Like, he had a decent kickboxing Muay Thai record before he ever came into the UFC or did his debut. He was already pretty well established.
So I'm going to go with Gane. I think there is zero possibility of this thing going to a decision. I just think Junior, he's on the 3-fight skid. God bless him. He's gave us a lot of great fights. But, I think after this, Dana's talking about cutting 60 people. I'm going to have to say JDS might be on that list. But, an organization up and coming like maybe PFL or Bellator would kill to have a guy like that if he still continues and wants to fight. But I'm going to go with Cyril Gane, knockout, second round.
D-Bake, you're muted, bro. Oh,
Yeah. I'm just going to break into some of the things on here. They're both 6'4". Gane weighs 265. Dos Santos weighs 236. Gane has a longer reach advantage. They're about the same leg reach. But here's where I agree with both of you guys. you got Gane, who has a 40% TKO KO range, and then his submission is 60%. His decision is 0. So none of his fights have gone to decision, whereas Dos Santos, his TKO rate is 71, submissions 5, and then 24 by decision. Where I think this, and then average fight time 10 minutes and 59 seconds for JDS, and then 4 minutes for Gane. I think this favors Gane being the fresher fighter. He's only fought 6 times. He's won all 6. And with JDS going on the down scale, he's lost 3 straight fights. Yeah, they've been 2 great fighters in the top 5, but just like you said, it hasn't been the same since then. I think he's done too much, and his chin hasn't been the same. And then even though Gane doesn't hit as hard as we think he might, with how bad the chin is, it could be enough just to knock him out. And then I have Gane win this with the first round knockout. I think he's going to get him. He's going to catch him. JDS is going to fall down, and then he's just going to finish him. And it's going to be another win on the belt for Gane.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say too, and JDS really can't take a punch like he used to either. I don't know if you watched the Ngannou fight, but Ngannou just clipped him. It wasn't. If it had been a full-on like the Alistair Overeem Hadouken punch, I mean, JDS might not be here today. So I agree with you totally. Father Time wins all battles. So
yeah. Moving on to the second fight, we got the middleweight bout between Kevin Holland and Ronaldo Souza. As you know, Holland was supposed to fight on I believe, last week's card or the card before, but that fight got scrapped because of his opponent, and now he's on this one against Souza. What do you think about this, Sam?
I'm going to have to go with Kevin Holland. If it weren't for Davidson Figueiredo, this guy would be my pick for Fighter of the Year. He's fought more than anybody, I think, this year. He's been successful. He beat one of my I'm a huge Joaquin Buckley guy. I think this guy, you were talking about superstars moving up. This guy's moving up quick, but I think Kevin Holland is right on his coattails. Kevin Holland's coming in, 5 losses, but those are, to me, that's learning curves. Those are a learning curve. So I'm going to have to go with Kevin Holland, and I'm probably going to have to say knockout 2nd or 3rd round.
What about you, Miles?
So this fight is kind of interesting. It seems like the theme of this beginning of the card is like age and experience versus youth and rigor, like especially with this fight, like holy shit. So you got Kevin Holland. He's a 2nd degree black belt in Kung Fu, which is very unorthodox in terms of background for UFC and MMA in general. He's also got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's had a great ground game his whole career. He used to be the middleweight and welterweight champ for Extreme Knockout, and he's the 2-time amateur welterweight champ for a separate league. But the big thing here is he's 13 years younger, and he has a significant reach advantage. Like, that's huge. I think it was 81 for Holland and 72 on the reach for Souza. So like that's enormous. And he's 13 years younger. So those things are definitely going to play a part here. Now, in terms of their fighting styles, Holland, he's got real fast movement. He's good at finding those angles when he's moving around the ring. He's got great footwork, and he uses those heavy elbows, and he uses them everywhere. Like, he'll be in guard. He'll be like on his back, elbowing people in the face from down below while he's defending, and he's getting, punches rain down on him. And when he's up top, he'll find ways to sink those elbows in. And sometimes those really are devastating. Sometimes they miss, but that's kind of his calling card because he's an unorthodox fighter. That's his name of the game, is he'll just do stuff that, while it's not technically proficient, it's like, well, it worked. I mean, if it works, it works. And you're not gonna tell him like, oh, that was a dumb thing to do. He's like, really? Because I knocked that guy out, so it wasn't that dumb. So I think when you look at how he strikes, it could be something problematic if he were to go up against like a far more experienced, far more technical striker like Adesanya or Robert Whittaker. Like, if he keeps moving up in the division and he gets those fights, the unorthodox way he strikes leaves a lot of openings in his guard that he makes up for with his movement and his agility, but later on down the road that might come back to haunt him. So over time he's going to need to tighten that up. But for this fight, I think he's going to be fine because Souza is not really a big striking guy. That's not really his thing. So the only thing I would look at as far as Kevin Holland is concerned is he does have trouble recovering when he gets overwhelmed. Like if you watch the Thiago Santos fight, like he was in the fight for most of the time. And then if he gets rocked or if he gets put in just, wrestling up against the cage in a position he's not used to, he just kind of fell apart. And that's why Santos won that fight, is because he would just get him up against the cage, put him on the floor, beat the shit out of him for a while. And he'd hang in there, he'd be defending, throwing his elbows from the floor and not getting knocked out at least. But it just happened to him too often. He would just get in a position where he was overwhelmed. He didn't know how to problem solve his way out. And he incurred too much damage. There were too many points being racked up on the cards against him. And that might be the sort of the chink in his armor for this fight, is if Souza can find a way to overwhelm him like that, just in a grappling sense, not in a striking sense, obviously. But if he can find a way to overwhelm him and put him on the cage and make him problem solve in a way that he can't, that could be the thing that costs him the fight. I don't think it's very likely, but it is something to be kind of on the lookout for. Now, when you look at Ronaldo Souza, 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's got some Muay Thai. I mean, he's not internationally ranked in terms of like an amateur career or anything. It's more like he was a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who also along the way is learning Muay Thai. Let's put it that way. 8-time world Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion and also a judo black belt. So that accounts for his wrestling ability as well. And of course, excellent wrestling, excellent grappler, strong wrestling, excellent submission game, decent Muay Thai, like I said before. Now, he does have issues recovering from big hits. And when he gets rocked, sometimes he'll have this tendency where he tries to rush in and take things to the ground before he feels like he's losing control of the fight. And you see this a lot with grapplers in general. Like when they know they're losing in the hands, they're like, well, I only got one option. It's got to go to the floor. Like that's my world. So overall, at the end of the day, I think this is going to come down to how the first round goes and how long Holland can keep up his endurance, because that's really the thing that he's got over Souza, the 40-year-old fighter. He's a young dude. He's 27. He's got all the endurance in the world. But if he tries to overcommit and Souza is able to put him in those grappling positions where he has a huge advantage in terms of experience, he could burn out. And that's the danger he has to watch out for. He has to conserve his energy. He has to make sure he's staying within that striking distance where he has an overwhelming advantage. And he's not trying to match grappling for grappling, because he's not going to win that fight. There's no way. So if there's a submission to be had, I don't think it's very likely, but that would obviously go to Souza. But I see Holland probably winning by knockout fairly early on in the fight. And if it goes to decision, which I don't think it will, but if it does, it basically means Holland didn't do what he had to do during the fight, and he allowed Souza kind of to take too much control. Would mean that if it does go to decision, it might be a Souza victory. And I hope you guys can hear me. That was it. But anyway, overall win by knockout for Kevin Holland, either in the first or second round.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short, but the three main things to look at with this fight is landed punches per minute, significant strikes, and absorbed strikes per minute. Kevin Holland has Souza 4.11 to 2.85 landed per minute. Significant strikes, you got Holland's at 63% to Souza's 52%. And then absorbed strikes per minute, you got Holland at 3.45, and then you got Souza at 5.08. So you got Holland who's punching more per minute, but then taking in less absorbed at the same time. And then, of course, that equals into him being 13 years younger. So I feel like he's going to come out early. He's going to try and to dominate the middle of the octagon, and he's going to pressure him early. And I feel like it's either going to be a first round knockout where he catches Souza, or he'll be able to wear him down and get him by knockout in maybe the second round. I don't see this going the distance. I just think Souza's this might be one of his last fights, being 41, and I think this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be Kevin Holland.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, but moving on to the third fight, we got lightweight bout between Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev. How do you feel about this, Sam?
I'm definitely gonna go ahead and say I'm going with Renato. He's an ATT guy, American Top Team, strong gym. I love, American Top Team's probably in the top 3 best gyms. And I mean, you got them, you got AKA, there's some good ones out there, but American Top Team, they just produce winners. They've really got it going on. I'm going to say, where he started from, jungle fight in Brazil. A lot of legends have came from there. You got Anderson Silva. A lot of legends have came out of there, and they've all proven to be winners. I think I couldn't really figure out much on Fiziev. I'm not sure if Fiziev. I just don't see him taking this one. I'm gonna have to go with Renato on this one. I didn't do a whole lot of studying on this one, to be honest. I'm not familiar with either one, to be honest with you. So I'm going to let Miles take this one.
On to you, Miles.
All right, cool. I actually have the opposite opinion. So basically, when you look at these, in my opinion, their background tells the story, and that basically, when you look at how they train and what they're experienced in, that gives you an idea of how this fight's going to go right off the bat. You got Renato Moicano, I think is how you say that. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got some Muay Thai. He's the interim jungle fight featherweight champion for a while. Now, when you watch him fight, he's got good movement, decent Muay Thai. Not anything amazing, but decent. Basically, he uses his Muay Thai to kind of stand and trade just long enough to find those openings for takedowns, putting him up against the cage, putting him into grappling situations where he's a lot stronger. His hands really aren't anything special to where he should be standing and trading with the best of them. He will lose that. So basically he tends to run around the ring quite a bit, and it's a combination of good mobility. Like, he uses the shuffle step, which you see a ton of in basically jiu-jitsu, but a little bit in wrestling. It's more of a jiu-jitsu thing because you're trying to find your way around, trying to find those angles to, like, oh, okay, I can now hit a single or now, while his strike delivery is more technical, he has trouble maintaining his guard, especially when he overcommits for big hits. So that's what I'm talking about, where he's got decent Muay Thai. It's not amazing, because when he goes for those big shots, he creates those openings, and a more technical fighter will pick him apart for that shit. So the other problem with him is it's like he understands how to strike, but he hasn't mastered power striking yet. And you see him stand and trade with these guys, and they just like take punches to the face and they're like, okay, all right. they deliver him right back. So he's over time, and hopefully those will add up to where, people are like, okay, now I don't want to do that anymore, or they feel enough damage to where they start to get a little more lax with their hands, and it creates openings for takedowns, because that's where he's really strong, is when they go to the ground. That's where all of his experience is. So good wrestling, good ground game, obviously. Now, when you look at Rafael Fiziev, and another Russian guy, a lot of Russians popping into the UFC now, like they're taking over. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. He's an amazing Muay Thai kickboxer. And he's also got a little bit of combat sambo in there. For if you don't know that, think of Nurmagomedov style wrestling, basically. If you're from Russia, everybody over there is basically sambo, and that's over there, that's wrestling in Russia. Now, he's still very new to the UFC. He's very green. He's only had 3 fights. He is coming off of a 2-fight win streak. Now, normally I would say that, experience does trump youth and vigor, in terms of if you're brand new to the league. we usually see even good fighters who are brand new, they have a lot of trouble adjusting. A good example of that was the Murphy versus Shako. No, I can't remember her name. It was another Russian. We were talking about the card a while back, and I remember she was coming in to fight Murphy, the number 5 contender in her division, and we were saying like, wow, she's really good. She's got some skills. She's a great grappler. She's very quick on her feet. She's got decent striking. And in like 5 years, she's going to be amazing, but in that fight, it was the fact that she was too inexperienced. And of course she lost. That's exactly how it went down. Now, the difference here is I think that 9-4 professional Muay Thai record. And the guy's got a ton of experience with just people exactly like Moicano, guys who like to move around a lot, guys who like to use their mobility against your superior striking to find those angles and to try to put you in a position where you don't want to be in terms of grappling. I saw one fight, I forget he was fighting, but it was basically like watching Moicano, and I was like, oh shit, I wonder if this guy's going to be able to, use his mobility to, make Fitzev go to the ground. And we don't really know how good his grappling is, but he's only a blue belt, so he's relatively new, which could have put him in a lot of trouble. But he turned the tables on the dude. He waited just for that perfect little opening to start landing those big punches on him, and he knocked him out. I think it was in the first round within a couple of minutes. I want to say within 2 minutes of the first round. So he's got decent movement, but he's not as mobile, but he makes up for it with this high pressure approach in his stand-up striking. He'll take the center ring and then just make everybody else kind of, cater to what he wants them to do. He's got good ability to maintain his guard even after he misses shots, but the big thing, he has excellent recovery, and that's going to be something that Moicano is going to have to deal with, is when Fitzev throws those big strikes, even if it misses, Moicano is going to have a very, very small window to take advantage of that recovery time in order to make some shit happen, because Fitzev will just like that be on top of him again. He'll be putting him right back into the center where he's landing those big power punches. He's also very fast and powerful, which is always a difficult combination to overcome for anybody in the ring. He's got great clinch work, great power knees. And I haven't really seen any examples of his grappling again, but he's only a blue belt, so he's new to it. So I think if it did go to the ground, Moicano would have the advantage being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But overall, I think the most likely thing that we're going to see is a Fitzev KO relatively quickly, probably first, second round, just because he strikes so fast and so powerfully. And Moicano, even though he should be strategizing to try to get this guy into a ground fight, I think he's going to want to stand and trade in terms of striking. He's going to think, oh, I can outstrike him, and it's not going to happen for him. Like Fitzev just is too much experience and too much power. So, yeah, if it goes to decision, that's another way Moicano could maybe take it. But again, I don't think he's going to be able to weather the storm of punches that are going to be landing in his face the whole time he's trying to deal with Fitzev.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, and I won't be long, but Fitzev has a 71% KO, TKO rating, and a 14% submission rating, and then 14% decision, whereas Moicano has a 0% KO rating, 46 submission, and then 54 decision. So a lot of his fights are either by submission or decision, whereas most of Fizie's is by knockout. So I further agree with you on a first round knockout by Fizie and I believe his debut. But now moving on to the co-main event, we got your guy Tony Ferguson, Sam, in the lightweight bout with Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. I'll start with you, Miles.
Hey,
Okay.
1 second. Can I be excused for 1 minute, guys? I have just one minute. Thank you, sir.
No, you're good. I'll have you get started.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So this fight, I don't know, I've been thinking about this fight all day, and I still can't come down conclusively on one side or the other, because it's like both of these fighters kind of, in a way, have to have a perfect fight for them to each be able to win, because they're both really, really good at one thing, and then they're not so great at the other, right? Like Ferguson is obviously the better striker, but Oliveira is obviously the better grappler. So they're going to have to stick to the thing they're really good at and force the other guy to fight the fight that they don't want to fight. And that's very difficult for guys at this level, particularly who have a lot of control over the fight, who have the ability to play to their strengths and then use the stuff they're not good at to parlay into, well, I'm not a great grappler, so I'm going to keep this fight from going to the ground by using my mobility, my striking. Or in the case of Oliveira, I'm a great grappler, so I'm going to use my striking to close distance, keep pressure on him, and then shoot for those takedowns, put him in wrestling positions where I can, take him down to the ground and work my submission game. So on Tony Ferguson, he does have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's an NCAA or NCWA wrestler, boxing, Muay Thai, and apparently he does a little Wing Chun. I wasn't able to verify that anywhere else, but I did notice in the road to UFC 256, he had a Wing Chun wooden dummy in the back. So I guess he must have some experience. But he is a national All-American and North Central Conference wrestling champion, as well as the Pure Combat welterweight champ. Now, he was on a 12-fight winning streak before he went up against Gaethje. And when he lost, I think that hit him hard. I think he was salty about that. So I think what happened is after he lost against Gaethje, he's probably been in the gym training constantly because he knows he's going to have to go back and he wants to start that win streak again. So I feel like in this fight, he's going to feel like he has something to prove. Now, he does also have a 2-inch reach advantage, which for these fighters at this level, it matters less, but it is like, well, at least he has that advantage, especially if his strategy is to be a striker. That helps a lot because you have a little bit of extra reach on those punches to keep them away from you and keep them in striking range rather than allowing them to get close and turn this into a grappling match. Now, he's also a very high pressure striker. He's very good at, keep pushing forward and making them problem solve. And a lot of fighters, when you fight that way, the tendency is to move backwards because you're like, well, I don't want to get too close, otherwise I'm going to eat punches. And it's even subconscious. Like you don't necessarily think about it. Your body just acts to maintain this distance between you and the guy who's advancing on you. Your body just goes, oh, we'll just walk backwards. And unfortunately, that's the kiss of death for a lot of these fighters because that's exactly what he wants them to do. That's when he uses his wrestling to put them up against the cage or even take them down to the ground. And in terms of his victories, it's pretty well balanced between KOs and submission victories and decision. He's definitely got more KOs than anything else, followed up by submission. But he's got excellent wrestling ability. He's got good impact resistance. He's got a chin on him. He'll take punches, no problem, and he'll stay in the fight. He's also very fast with his attacks. He's also fast to recover, which is going to be a big thing in this fight. It's going to be who makes the bigger mistake and who can't recover in time because they both have excellent recovery. It's just going to be who can catch them unaware at the right moment because they're both going to be fighting for dominance both on the ground and on their feet. So this is again, it's going to be a super close match no matter how you look at it. The main things I would look at in terms of a technical standpoint, the weaknesses in Tony Ferguson's game, his striking isn't overly technical, but he does make up for it with his movement and his recovery time. So even though he creates those openings, they're not there for very long. So that's how he's able to kind of keep up. And I think what happened in the Gaethje fight is Gaethje's timing. He found just the right timing to take advantage of those openings and land those big power hits. And they added up over time to where at the end of the fight, Ferguson is like, he's wobbly. You could tell he was hurt bad. So Oliveira is obviously not the same caliber striker as Gaethje is, but he could possibly take advantage of those openings and parlay that into a grappling situation. And then that's when he could potentially find himself in some trouble. He also overreaches sometimes when he goes for big hits and he misses. He has the tendency to kind of overcommit and move forward, which is something Oliveira would be able to take advantage of being a jiu-jitsu guy. Like that's what they want you to do is close that distance, but then take advantage of the points at which you're not overly protecting or not thoroughly protecting your body. They're gonna be like, oh, look, there's a leg. Oh, look, there's an ankle or I can take the back now. That's what he's going to be probably waiting for. Now, as far as his ground game, he's a good versatile fighter, and he's actually pretty good on the ground. However, Charles Oliveira is a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so there's an experience gap there that no matter how much training you have, unless you have years to prepare for this fight, it's unlikely you can cover that skill gap. So it's going to come down to, again, can Tony Ferguson use his striking to hopefully get a knockout, or will Oliveira be able to close the distance and use his grappling to get a submission? Because again, Oliveira's Muay Thai and boxing is not all that great. It's largely just there to allow him to create openings in a guard so that he can get his submissions and his takedowns and make it a grappling fight. He is on a 7-fight winning streak, which is impressive. And he was only given 3 weeks notice for this fight. But I think this goes both ways because of the people fighting, right? Like, I'm sure that Tony Ferguson has been training his ass off since he lost to Gaethje. And if it had been almost anybody else in the division, he probably could have just been like, who am I fighting? Okay, cool. And just keep doing the training he's already been doing. But because it's Oliveira and he has such dominance on the ground in his submission game, he has to train specifically for Oliveira. So he definitely will have to change things around in his training once he knows Oliveira is the guy to fight. And same thing with Oliveira. I think he would be okay with just about anybody else in the division. But since he's going up against Tony Ferguson, he's like, oh shit, I really gotta, these last 3 weeks are critical to building a good strategy to win here. He's, as far as his striking goes, Oliveira is a technical striker. He's got decent movement. Again, good wrestling, good takedown ability, excellent ground game. But he's also able to deal with the heavy strikes, and he's able to kind of weather the storm and just shoot into that grappling range. If you think back to the Anthony Pettis fight, that freaking roundhouse kick to the ribs that buckled Oliveira a couple of times, and then he's like, all right, I can't do that too much longer. But he was able to weather the storm of those big, heavy strikes. And Anthony Pettis had to start problem solving. He ended up winning by submission because Oliveira made a big mistake, but it just goes to show you that even against like a big power striker, someone who's way more advanced and technical with his striking, Oliveira can problem solve, find a way to get that submission victory if it's there for him. So long as he doesn't make a mistake, of course. Now, in terms of my final decision, again, it's hard to come down one way or the other. I think we're going to have to see how the first round goes. It's going to come down to Ferguson's ability to land those big power strikes versus Oliveira's ability to close distance and take the fight to the ground. Whoever's better at that is going to be the one who has the advantage here. Now, I think in terms of knockouts, I would say Tony Ferguson is the harder striker. And even if it's just like he lands the lucky shot, I think he's got a better chance of knocking Oliveira out than the other way around. But at the same time, if it goes to the ground, Oliveira definitely has the more chance of getting the submission victory. I think it's similar to kind of like the Gaethje Nurmagomedov situation where Gaethje was a great wrestler, but Nurmagomedov was just a better finisher. And that's what it comes down to. And if it goes to decision, which I don't think it will, but if it does, I think Ferguson probably will get the decision just based on the number of decision victories in his career. But I'm torn between Ferguson by knockout and Oliveira by submission, probably in the second round. These guys aren't necessarily first round fighters. They can be, but they tend to gain steam as the fight goes forward. So second, maybe beginning of third round, we'll see a finish, but I don't know. I still don't know which one I think is going to get it.
On to you, Sam.
I'm going to look. I don't know what Tony Ferguson has done to the UFC. He cannot get a match made for him, correct? This is a bad match for Tony Ferguson. I'll explain. Just like the Gaethje was a bad match for him. He took the fight anyway. He cut weight twice. And bottom line, that wasn't the same Tony Ferguson that you would normally see in a Tony Ferguson fight. This fight does not favor Tony Ferguson. I am a huge Tony Ferguson fan. And while I will differ with you on Miles that I don't think their ground games and submissions are that far apart. Those 10th Planet guys, that Tony's shown he's got really good darce, really good submissions, that snap down of the head. I don't know. He's a slow starter, but both of them are. Both of them are slow. I would have preferred this to be a 5-round fight, being a Tony Ferguson fan. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tony. Naturally, I think Tony has the experience, and he's a big-time player in big fights, and he needs this fight. The age is a factor. I'm going to say that. And we don't know how much damage. Well, we know how much damage he took in the Gaethje fight. Yeah. But how does that really affect him? You just – who knows if he comes back the same? I mean, yeah, he took those shots in that fight, but a fight like that definitely changes your career, I think. I think Tony is going to come in guns blazing. He knows he's got to come in and fight this and win this thing. For some unbeknownst reason, this man can't get a title fight, and everybody keeps hopping over him. And I don't know. I really want Tony to win this, but if I'm thinking logically, this fight does not favor Tony Ferguson. Oliveira's hungry, and yeah, he's beat Kevin Lee. He's beat some names in there, but Tony Ferguson's a whole nother level for him. He wins this fight, he's in a different stratosphere. Simple as that. But I'm gonna say, I think Tony wins it. I think Tony keeps it standing. I think Tony's motion, his range, he does get reckless, which that scares me. Everybody knows it's not hard to hit him. Mm-hmm. So if he can turn it on a little bit earlier than he usually does, in a 3-round fight, you can't waste a round. You can't waste a minute in any fight. But generally, endurance and stamina would come into play in a 5-round fight that would favor Tony. And I don't think it's going to favor him here. 3 rounds. Oliveira's, he in the beginning of his career, he had been kind of known as, he would gas. But now I just don't see Oliveira not taking this fight as serious as possible. With, the outcome could throw him in a whole nother level of fighters. So I'm going to go with Tony. I think Tony guts this one out. But I'm going to say I'm not going to be overwhelmed and surprised if things don't go his way. I don't see either fighter finishing this fight. I see this being a 3-round decision. And I think it favors Tony. Just with, like you said, Miles, he's pretty good on the record as far as decisions on his record. He knows how to finish a fight and win a fight on points. But I'm going to go with Tony Ferguson. But I don't like the fight for him. So,
yeah, it's interesting. You start to see Oliveira later in his career. Like, I think even just the last fight he had, he was throwing like some jump kicks and shit he's never done before. So he's starting to kind of branch out and do that. He's creative, sort of the same way Tony Ferguson is creative. He'll throw out those random things. I think Tony Ferguson, though, has more skill at making those random things work for him, though. I think Oliveira, if he tries to do that, Tony Ferguson's going to make him pay for it big time.
And one thing we both missed, a lot of Oliveira's earlier stuff was at a different weight class. He looks better at this weight class. Yeah. The cut's not killing him. And like I said, to me, he's a whole nother fighter from when he was fighting at featherweight, I think, correct? He was fighting at featherweight?
So, yeah. I think that's right.
So this is definitely, I don't see this not being the fight of the night. I'm sorry. This could easily headline a pay-per-view. But I'm going to go with Tony. I don't think I think he's still in there when it comes to submissions. Like I said, those 10th Planet guys, they're good on the ground. And Tony's got a great submission game as well. So it all comes down to that. It all comes down to me, the 3-round fight. I think that's going to hurt him.
Before I go into mine, we got Nathan chiming in. I got T-Berg by 3rd round TKO. Charles historically fades towards the end of the 2nd round, and I truly believe that Tony will be able to grapple with him successfully. That's pretty possible. The one thing that I looked into this is I'm scared that the past 2 fights, Tony Ferguson has got off very late in his fights. Like the first round against Anthony Pettis was digging it right into him and made him bleed in the first round. And then right away, in the first seconds of the 2nd round, he woke up. It was like he was a different fighter. He shot out of a cannon, and he was a machine and just came at Pettis all of a sudden in the 2nd round and took that fight in the 2nd and 3rd round. And when Pettis had the 1st round won. Then in the Gage fight, which everybody has to remember, he was training for Khabib in that. And that fight got restarted like 2 times that year. So I think Gage stepped in on 2-3 weeks notice, I believe it was, when Khabib got hurt the 2nd time that they tried to get it going. So training for Khabib compared to train for Gage is a totally different ball game for a guy like Ferguson. Khabib is a wrestler. He's going to take you down. and he has punches, but Gage is just a straight striker. He's gonna trade with you. He's gonna attack you, and then he did mix a little bit of the takedowns in it, but his striking was just on a different level. And I felt like Ferguson wasn't ready for that fight. Something just seemed off with him because he usually in the first round he gets hit, but then he recovers and then he comes back stronger in the second round. But as each time it went on in the fight, he just looked lost. He didn't look the same. He didn't come back stronger. He was actually weaker. So part of me feels like I got to see what I can get out of Tony Ferguson first. But he's not going to have that much leeway considering it's only 3 rounds instead of 5 rounds, like you said. Mm-hmm. So I either think it's going to be, if he comes in great, it's going to be a second-round TKO by Ferguson. But if he doesn't, I think it's going to be a decision victory for Oliveira. It just all depends on what Ferguson shows up. If it's the past 2 fights, I got Oliveira. But it's the normal Tony Ferguson, I got him by knockout. It just, like I said, it just all depends on which guy shows up. But I have a feeling he's going to show up. He's going to be motivated to, considering that even though he did win the past one, he didn't look great early. And then in this one, the Gage one, he just got beat up bad, like all aspects. He's going to want to get that pushed aside and out of everybody's the vision, and then get this and then start fresh with the victory over Oliveira, where he can build on that and then get a top 3 fight again.
Agreed.
But moving on to the main event of Saturday night, we got a fight for the flyweight title belt between champion Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. As everybody knows, these guys fought 3 weeks ago on the last pay-per-view card, where Figueiredo beat Alex Perez, and then Moreno beat Brandon Royval. And then with the fight that was supposed to be on this card got scrapped, this got basically pushed up real quickly. They only had 3 weeks of training time, which both of them wanted it because they both basically didn't use too much energy in their fights. I think the title fight was maybe a minute, I think it was a few minutes, and then the Moreno one was 2 rounds, but he basically controlled that. How do you feel about that? I'll start with you, Sam.
I love quick turnaround fights. A lot of people say it's a downfall. I do not think it's a downfall at all. You're still fresh. You're not having to, go through the rigors of cutting again. And, you might have to do a little bit of tweaking and training, but I mean, a lot of fighters have won on turnaround fights. Shout out to the UK, Michael Bisping, my guy. Came around on short notice, took out Luke Rockhold, won the UFC middleweight championship. I think this is going to be a hell of a fight. I can't go against Davison Figueiredo no matter what, because I did it last time against Perez, and I was completely mind blown. I hadn't yet bought into the hype, but now it's not hype. It's legit. This guy is the fighter of the year. I think he beats Moreno. Moreno's good, but I see Davison Figueiredo bringing the flyweight. Look, Henry Cejudo, all these guys had this belt, and they were about to can this weight division. I think Davison Figueiredo is the right match of star power. He's got a great story, and he's bringing the flyweight, has already brought the flyweight division back up. I think Davison Figueiredo wins this thing quick, just like he did against Alex Perez. I thought Alex Perez would win that fight strictly because he's a dominant wrestler. And I'll be damned if, Figueiredo got took down and ended up winning the fight. So I'm not betting against Figueiredo. Plain and simple. Davison Figueiredo, round 1. I think yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty one-sided fight, to be honest with you. Like the fact that they wanted to do it so soon after the last card, I think for Figueiredo, it was like, okay, I got no problem with that. I think it's Moreno who's like, I think he's buying into his own bullshit a little bit, where he's getting high on his own supply. He's like, I think he thinks he's better than he actually is. And I think there's like this machismo thing of like, oh, I can do it. Like I'm way better than Figueiredo already. I don't need to train, like, which is completely insane. I think he's way overestimating his abilities, both on paper and in like, reality that we all have to share. But I mean, you've got Figueiredo, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Moreno's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. So there's already a pretty big skill gap there. You got Figueiredo with his very unique approach to Muay Thai. He's but definitely one of the heaviest strikers in his division. But he's also an unorthodox fighter in a way that he sets up his opponents for those strikes. I kind of talked about this last time where I saw him fighting where I forget which fight it was, but he would allow people to kind of come on the outside, which usually the danger there is if someone gets on your outside hand, they catch this angle, you're susceptible to takedowns or even getting set up for like real heavy, powerful roundhouse kicks to the head or the body. But as soon as, he tracks a fighter to about 45 degrees, he'll fire off a spinning back kick, which you don't see a whole lot of in MMA, but he lands it pretty successfully. And it's a big power shot when it connects. So he's very methodical. He's very strategic in how he strikes. And he's also very powerful when he does connect. Whereas Moreno, it's not like he's not a heavy striker. It's just, I don't think he can stand and trade with Figueiredo. I think he thinks maybe he can, but in reality, I don't see that going his way. He's got a decent sense of movement, engaging, and timing, and he does have that dominant ground presence where he gets on top and he stays real tight on him to try to do some ground and pound, try to elbow in close where they can't do a whole lot to defend. But Figueiredo does that too, and he does it better. He's not only got dominant top game, he's also got excellent bottom game. He can problem solve from his back very, very well. He's got a great submission game because, again, there's a huge skill gap in their ground ability and their striking ability. I also Figueiredo's a good wrestler. I don't see all that much wrestling from Moreno. I mean, he's got a very like dominant pressure game to where if he gets you on the cage, he's essentially looking to try to get you into a ground and pound situation. Whereas Figueiredo, he'll wrestle with you, and if he wants the ground and pound, he'll get the ground and pound. If he wants to make it a submission match, he'll take you to the ground and fight from his back or take your back or do whatever the hell he wants.
Very well
because
rounded.
he's just very mobile. Yeah, he's very versatile. So I mean, this is just a clean sweep. If it's a KO, it's going to be Figueiredo. If it's submission, it's going to be Figueiredo. If it goes to the decision, Figueiredo is going to control that fight and get the decision. The only path to victory I see for Moreno potentially here is if he manages to land just that lucky power shot, rock Figueiredo, get him to fall on his ass and win by ground and pound finish. That's the only shot in hell he's got here. But it's like, ice has a better chance of surviving in hell. So I got Figueiredo either probably by KO or submission pretty early on, either first or second round. Because I think Moreno is going to come in hot and heavy, and he's going to figure out real quick he's outclassed.
Actually, for me, I do think Figueiredo is going to win this, but I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Figueiredo is going to come out fast, and Moreno is going to take his time because Moreno is more like, for him to win, he's going to have to use his skills again to the ground, whereas Figueiredo, he's going to come out swinging. He either wins by knockout or he somehow locks you into a submission out of nowhere. That's been Figueiredo's game, but he tends to tire out later on. And when he does get there, his one loss was to recently released Jussier Formiga by decision, where he kind of got tired later on because the fight actually went longer than a round. Usually Figueiredo goes only 1 or 2 rounds, but if he gets to that point where it goes longer, he starts to lose juice and he starts to tire out. And I'm gonna expect Moreno to try and weather the storm for the first minute or two, and then to try and get Figueiredo on the ground and wear him out. Because if he does that, he does have a shot by decision. And if somehow he can lock in when he's getting tired out, submission, he'd be in good shape. But I feel like he's going to take a shot early. It's going to get him out of his game plan. And then Figueiredo is going to win by second round submission. I don't think he'll knock him out because I don't think Moreno will let him. But but I do think that Figueiredo would get one of those crazy submissions that he had, just like he just did against Perez, where Perez took him down, and as he took him down, somehow Figueiredo went like this, grabbed his head, and got him into the guillotine choke, and then he choked him out, even though Perez was picking him up like he was about to slam him down, but he couldn't handle it because it was so early, where Figueiredo didn't spell that much energy that he was able to do that. Whereas Perez got him down, but he was getting his energy back up from using energy to get him down. So he didn't have enough energy to put out to withstand it. Whereas I think Moreno will be able to expand from all that. But I think it's either going to be Figueiredo by second round submission, or if there's any luck it goes to decision, I think Moreno could win by decision. But I don't think Figueiredo will win by decision at all. It's either going to be submission by Figueiredo in the second round or Moreno by third round decision. And then we got Nathan chiming in before we get going. He says Moreno has his style to make a fight out. He's an aggressive fighter with a rock-solid chin. Alejandro Pandoria punched with Fig and gave him trouble. Moreno's best chance is getting it past the third, as he has a cardio advantage, but I still see Fig winning. Yeah, just like I said, with the endurance, I don't think Figueiredo's been tested, but it's going to be kind of hard to pick against him with how much power he has just by hitting you in one. That, like, you see guys that usually don't get bothered by it, they get hit by him, and then they're like, no, just like Benitez or Bermudez with that fight. You don't see that happening to him, and he just got knocked down bad. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it ends up, if Moreno can make the fight go longer distance, or if it's just gonna be first round, second round Figueiredo by easy. That's why it's gonna be crazy, because it's only gonna be 3 weeks training. They're not getting a month or 6 weeks of training. They're only getting 3 weeks between this. So it'll be interesting to see how they make their different movements in training camp, considering they're fighting different guys than they did before. But do either of you guys have anything to say before we wrap this up?
No, it's just been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yep. But before we get going, this is the Buzz. Like I said before, and same crew, different platform. And here's our schedule for the week. It basically stays the same, but like I said, different platform. But here's the promo video.
War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall, be ready for war. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall, be ready for war. Tell them I'm ready, any opponent. The crown heavy and every minute is chosen. A path only fit for kings, and you don't know what this court means. What did you enlist for? If it isn't getting more rings, then you gon' have to switch your team. Trust me, it gets more mean. I'm a nightmare going up against your dreams. First step is explosive like a bomb hit. Bet if I let it fly, I cannot miss. And you ain't got a chance at the top 10 when you getting clamped all night by your locksmith. On the block, throwing lobs for my top bigs. I'm a chef, no look with the top dish. Tie game, through the pressure as the clock ticks. Crossover, step back, hit a shot, swish. Tell them that's what we ready for.
And right before we get going, Miles has something that he wants to say.
Yeah, I totally forgot. I was like, oh, I got nothing to say. And then my brain's like, no, stupid. You do actually. So yeah, we've recently transitioned over into the Buzz, which has been super awesome. A lot of positivity, a lot of good growth. Even when we're coming out the gate, we're getting a lot of attention. We're getting a lot of views, which is awesome. And, I kind of want to help contribute to that in my own way, even though for the most part, I help with this, but I also do audio only podcast, Laughs and Rec. But what I'm actually doing to help kind of promote this whole thing and also just bring in a new year, because I mean 2020 has just sucked ass. I mean, we gotta start fresh in 2021. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be having a live stream on Twitch on December 31st, starting at about 7 p.m. Central. I think that's like 8 o'clock Eastern. And we're having a bunch of creators on. We actually have Crystal from the Buzz staff, who's going to be coming on for about 30 to 45 minutes. Just talk about 2020, play some games. I got a lot of other creators who are super excited about it to come on and celebrate the new year with us. And of course, we're gonna be pushing the Buzz. We're gonna be talking about all kinds of fun stuff, playing all kinds of fun games. There's a drinking game that I'm sure multiple people are going to want to play because they get to come on fresh, but I got to stay here and play multiple rounds back to back. So you'll probably see me get fairly trashed and try to also play games where like I have to tell stories while I'm fucked up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be probably a 4-hour stream. We're going to start early, go all the way till the ball drop in New York City. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, just tune in for that. And I want to try to get as many Buzz members in on that to take up my time slots. I'm losing them pretty quick. People are super excited to get on board. So I've got, I think, 4 time slots left. But yeah, just tune in for that. It's going to be great. And let everybody know so we can all have a good time bringing in the new year together.
See, I see what you did there. You're doing it by Eastern time so that the last hour you can do whatever because you'll be done. And then you can bring in the new year for a second time.
You're back to back.
Exactly. But this going off of that with the Christmas coming up and the New Year's, I just wanted to say to everybody, happy holidays, everyone. We won't be back on until the new year, which is perfectly because I actually want both of you guys to come back on because the next pay-per-view after Saturday will be the McGregor-Poirier one, which is going to be great. Mm-hmm. The return of Conor McGregor. So I look forward to seeing everybody commenting back on next time. Look forward to having both you guys on. As always, Miles, of course, great with your detail. And then nice having you on for the first time, Sam. I look forward to having you on many more times. You're a great addition. And then do you have anything to say before we get going?
No, I'll just say, guys, check out the website. The Buzz, kind of like Miles said, it's up and coming, but we're blasting it right out the gate. You can check out my articles. They'll be called The Devil's Advocate. I'll just be putting my little spin on what I think of the MMA and wrestling world.
Exactly. But as always, I'm D-Bake, that's Miles, and that's Sam. And then have a nice night, everyone.